squad.
I made a video last week about how being gifted a BBL at 16 ruined my life. Now I'm going to do a video answering everybody's questions. So one of the questions that I saw, I'm going to do this story time while taking out my braids actually. So one of the questions that I saw is this a skit? No, this is not a skit. I would not make up something like this. I was 16 back in 2018 and I followed Kylie Jenner, of course, at the time. And that's when there was like a lot of speculation about whether or not she had gotten a BBL. So I became obsessed with the idea of a BBL. I ended up on this site called Real Self, and I had posted a question on Real Self. I would say it's like a Quora or whatever kind of. And I said, does anybody know of any clinics that would perform a BBL on somebody under 18? So this clinic reached out to me less than a week later saying that they had a surgeon at their clinic willing to perform the BBL.
That's crazy.
Keep in mind, they only had a couple of surgeons that were willing to perform a BBL on somebody that age because the clinic that reached out to me was based out of Miami, and in Florida you can get a BBL under 18 as long as you have parental consent.
That's crazy. That shouldn't even be allowed.
So it is possible, you just need to have parental consent. I honestly have no further comment on the parental consent aspect of it. I feel like that could be a story time in itself. Yeah, I really don't have an answer for y'all on that one. It was wrong. It should have never been allowed. It should have never been approved. I cannot say that I would make the same decision with my kids. And that's all I have to say for that. I have no idea why this specific surgeon in Miami decided that it was okay for a 16-year-old to get this procedure done. There was not a lot of discussion prior to the surgery. The consult was very brief. I just showed up that day. They marked me up. There wasn't like a pre-op situation. There wasn't like a meeting beforehand. It was all very just cut and dry, literally. The clinic that I went to has since been upgraded. They have like a beautiful facility now. But when I went to them, the operating room literally looked like a garage. Like, it was so sketchy.
And yet you still got the procedure done. And it's crazy because if you go back to what she said, if you wanted to have this particular surgery under the age of 18, you had to have a parent's permission. And she acknowledged it looking back on it now that she shouldn't have gotten it done at that young age. But for her to not to even speak on her parents' situation and her parents okaying that, her not speaking on it says volumes.
The BBL cost $4,500 at the time. This was back when they were cheap, before like the BBL wave. So yeah, a lot of people were wondering, how does a 16-year-old have the money for that? I was gifted it, and go to part 2 to find out who gifted it to me and why, and for more drama. Part 2, answering questions on how getting a BBL at 16 ruined my life. I have only taken out like 4 braids during this, so I'm getting super distracted. But a lot of people wanted to know who gifted me this BBL. So it was my boyfriend at the time that had gifted me the BBL. I had been bringing it up nonstop for 6 months. He knew that it was something that I really wanted to do. He was 2.5 years older than me. He did get a pretty hefty allowance from his mom at the time. And so he had saved up some of his allowance and used that to buy me a BBL for my 16th birthday. And he like brought a card. It was like a bouquet of flowers, and in the card said like, you're getting what you've been hoping for so long, or something like that. Just basically like announcing like, I got you the surgery. A lot of people want.
That's wild to me. Used to be a time of Sweet 16, you would get gifted a car, and people thought that was awesome. Now we gifting people BBLs. And to get that money for the BBL from your 18-year-old boyfriend who gets allowance from his mother. How much allowance? She dating Scrooge McDuck over here. Allowance good enough that he can stack it up and buy you a BBL. Amazing.
To see my before and after pictures, and I don't have a ton of before, like immediately before and immediately after pictures, other than the ones that I gave the surgeon to review, and I don't feel like those are super appropriate to share. So I'm going to show a few throwbacks that I have of before and immediately after, because keep in mind, since I got the BBL, I have had 8 surgeries after, and that was my point in the original video, is the addiction that I've gotten to plastic surgery and to being able to just alter your body. Do you get what I'm saying? There was a small window when I just had a BBL, so I don't have a ton of pictures of me just with the BBL because I did continue getting surgery after surgery. Here's me before.
That's fine. We're gonna look at some before pics. 8 surgeries is insane. And y'all gotta remember, this is still a young girl now, by the way. 8 surgeries? And it's crazy because if you look at that picture, they don't even look like the same woman. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, it just doesn't look like the same woman.
This is on my
She was a kid then.
birthday. This is the day that I was gifted the BBL. Look at the smile on my face. Had no idea what I was getting into. Here is another before. This was the day that I got my license, so this was a couple of months after my 16th birthday. And then here is the last one. This was a couple of months before my 16th birthday. Okay, now we're gonna get to the after pictures. This is me, young little me after the BBL. This is about 6 to 8 months post-op. We went to Vegas for my little brother's basketball tournament, so that's where that's from. This is the third one. This is me about a year and a half post-op. I wish I would have stopped there. And unfortunately, I continued on, had 8 more surgeries that have left me literally disabled. So in the next video, part 3, I'm going to talk about how much I've spent on surgeries, the worst surgeries I've had, recovery, the surgery that essentially left me disabled. Catch you in part 3.
And the craziest thing about those BBLs is when you get them young like that, you get a BBL at 16. A woman's body doesn't fully develop until she's like in her 20s. So you're getting these surgeries before you allow Mother Nature to take its course and let her do her thing on the human body like it normally does.
Welcome to part 3 of taking out my braids and answering questions on how being gifted a BBL at 16 ruined my life. Okay, so I'm about to go into my appointment, but I was finishing editing part 3, and as you can see, I got my braids out finally, but there's a couple of things that I wanted to say that I noticed while I was editing. First of all, I can tell a ton of people think that I'm saying that my life was ruined and I was left disabled by the BBL, and that's not the case. It was by the addiction that came with starting plastic surgery so young. Second, just a disclaimer, you probably want to watch this one in 2x speed because this is like a 10-minute video compared to the other 2 parts. Third disclaimer is the original BBL, yes, it was a gift, but every surgery that I have had after that, I have paid for myself. So that's all money that I have spent myself. Third disclaimer, people are saying I look older than my age. I think that that is also a result of the plastic surgery addiction. I feel strongly that once I got the buccal fat removal and the rhinoplasty, that it aged me a lot. So those are my disclaimers. Enjoy.
What do you guys think? Leave a comment down below. She said earlier in the video that in 2018, she was 16. So that's 7 years ago. So she's only 23 now. To me, she doesn't look old for her age, but I was also surprised to find out she had facial surgery as well. Y'all let me know in the comments. You think she look old for her age? I think she looks normal.
Surgery, the BBL went really good. I did not have any complications with the recovery. It actually looked really good. You can see my before and afters in the last video. But I was getting constant compliments from those around me. I went viral on social media after. My head was blown up, to say the least. My head was blown up. So then I started just standing in front of the mirror and I'm like, what could I fix? Like, what else could I alter?
Wow.
Like, if I just tweaked this, what else would, you know? Like, ooh. And I was also in a super unhealthy relationship at the time. Like, I had just gotten to a super unhealthy relationship immediately post-op. And he would constantly tell me, like, hey, if you just tweaked this, you would be perfect. If you just tweaked that, you would be perfect. You'd be the definition of perfect if you just got filler here, if you just got your jaw done. So that took a huge mental toll on me too. So out of all the 3 parts, this is going to be the most personal, the most vulnerable, and the most uncomfortable for me because I've never spoken on exactly what surgeries I've had. So I'm not sharing this for any sort of opinions in the comments. I'm sharing it strictly to help young girls not end up in the same situation as me, to raise awareness and to hopefully stop somebody else from making the same decisions that I made. I am now 22, and since getting my first surgery, a BBL, I have now had a rhinoplasty, buccal fat removal, I've had armpit lipo, I have had my breasts done, I've had a breast augmentation, I have had a hip and butt augmentation, and that is the specific surgery that absolutely destroyed me. So in 2022, I started noticing that a lot of my BBL fat had dissolved or died. It didn't survive, I guess. So I wanted a second round of BBL. I didn't want to gain the weight to do it, so I started exploring my other options. Okay, so I stumbled across implants. Oh, if I could go back in time. If I could go back in time. I end up spending close to $40,000 on custom hip implants and butt implants. I immediately after surgery, I knew something was wrong. I knew, I could feel it. I had to have a nurse come stay with me for about a week because I was fainting from the pain. Even taking the pain medication, I was fainting from the pain. So I never fully healed in my hips. I have no feeling in my hips almost 18 hours a day. It feels like my hips are asleep. And then those other 4 hours, it's like the tingling sensation of your feet like waking up. You know what I mean?
That's insane. And I'm not 100% expert on this, and you guys can help me out in the comments if you would like. I think as far as the BBL and like how they do it now compared to like the old days is they take fat from one section of your body and put it down to where you want it to be. And I think they used to do injections back in the day, and the injections what we're getting, a lot of women sick or whatnot. But going to have implants put in, butt and hip implants, is crazy to me because she probably didn't have the fat on her body to get another BBL. That's sad, man. But I do appreciate the fact that she said something that you rarely hear, and that's, I'm talking about this so other young women can watch this and decide not to do it. Even though she's still a very young lady, she seems like she's self-aware and understands the mistakes she made. Also talking about how at one point her head got so big and she was just staring at herself in the mirror. I've talked about that with women on Instagram who just stare at themselves, and that's their content. And I've always said that's the most narcissistic thing on the internet, in my opinion. At least kudos to her for being self-aware.
So I'm in constant discomfort. I've had to take multiple flights to and from LA to go visit the doctor that originally put them in because there's been fluid buildup. There has been issue after issue, and we are just talking about the hip implants. I haven't even moved on to the butt implants yet.
Wow.
So just in the hip implants, I had numerous issues. I had fluid buildup. They did not look like they fit my body at all. I'm like, how are these custom and they don't fit my body? Why can I not feel massive amounts of my, like, huge chunks of my body have no feeling. I have no sensation. I couldn't roll over at night. And the way that they put the hip implants in is they put the hip implants in your body and then they sew them at the top to your hip bone. So they're sewn to my hip bone, and throughout the day I can feel where the stitching is. I can feel burning and pain and a sharp pain in that spot. Thank God I got them removed finally. But yeah,
Great.
That's why I'm finally deciding to speak out on all of this, is because I have been able to start through the process of reversing everything, and I'm finally in a place where I feel like I can talk about it. I made tons of complaints to the doctor who originally put them in. He tells me, like, yeah, you are that 1%. Unfortunately, 99% of the time things go right, and you're that 1% that has complications. So I guess there's some pocket where there's like fluid buildup and stuff in my butt implants. Now we're moving on to talk about my butt implants. Sorry, you got to keep up.
And that's the thing about these cosmetic surgeries. Nothing is 100%, and there's a small percentage of people, whatever type of surgery just won't work for them. Their body won't take whatever it is you're putting into it. But I think it's more than 1% that the doctor's telling her. 1%, probably much more than that.
So there's like some loose space in my butt implants is what I was led to believe. So fast forward to 8 months post-op from my butt implants. I'm laying on the beach in Miami, and I roll from my stomach to my back. I sit up. I'm like, I start looking around. I'm like, you guys, my butt implant just flipped. My butt implant flipped. Have you guys seen that article online where it's like a suction cup in her butt? My butt looked like that.
What?
I will include pictures in the next slide.
Wow. I haven't watched this clip, by the way.
I lied. I can't. It's too bad. But my butt implants flipped, and I was doing nothing. I was laying down and I rolled over, and my butt implants flipped.
Wow.
Now I'm racing around Miami. I end up at the emergency room where they tell me, hey, best we can do for you is to cut you open and take them out. And like, they were not cosmetic surgeons, to say the least. Like, they were not going to make sure that it looked that the job was done aesthetically at all. Like,
No, they surgeons. They was just trying to save your life. They don't care about end result if it looks pretty or not. They care about if you live.
they were gonna chop me up. So I'm like, no, just don't touch me. So I go to the Miami airport with my butt inside out. I'm at the Miami airport with my butt inside out, laying on my stomach in the middle of the Miami airport. I'm on the phone with the surgeon. I'm like, I don't care where he is. You guys need to bring him into the office now. This is an emergency. He tells me in 25 years of doing this, never once has he had this happen to a patient. Oh, good, great. That makes me feel so much better. Thank you.
That's probably cap, by the way.
So I go back, I take a shot, lay down, and flip it back. I did what had to be done. And then from that point on, I have basically spent every waking minute exploring my options as to how I can get them out of my body. Those are just like scratching the surface as to the problems that I've had with these implants. I can't even begin to explain. I can't do horseback riding anymore. I cannot do yoga. I cannot sleep in certain positions. I cannot sit in certain, if it's too hard, if the surface is too, you know what I mean? It's terrible. I reached out to the surgeon who put them in to try and get them removed, and he tells me, first he says, well, I'm not gonna apologize. This is his response to me saying, my implants flipped in the middle of the beach. Well, I'm not gonna apologize, which I understand, an apology is an admission of guilt to surgeons, but I mean, come on, dude. And then he proceeds to quote me almost $10,000 more than I paid to get them in for the removal. He gives me this quote to get them removed that's more than I paid to put them in, after he just admitted that I'm that 1%, that he's never had this happen before, and now you're telling me. I was mind blown. Hope that answers questions as to what I meant in the original video by plastic surgery ruined my life. It basically caused an addiction to surgery that led me to getting so many unnecessary surgeries that left me, I feel, disabled. I can't do all of the basic things that I used to be able to do, like I said, without risking extreme pain, extreme discomfort, or causing damage to the implants. I do a video with pictures talking more about the implants specifically, with receipts, pictures, and more of an explanation on the implants specifically. But that is it for all the questions in relation to my original video. If you guys have any more questions, leave them down in the comments, and I can definitely do more parts to this series.
Well, that's the end of the video, and that's crazy. I didn't say this in the beginning of the video, but I hadn't watched this clip yet. Her butt cheek implant flipped? That is crazy. That is a crazy sentence to even say. And she had all those surgeries at such a young age. She's only 22 now. She got her first BBL 6 years ago. And you know something's not right because she didn't even want to speak about her parents approving that. So there's no type of way to know what type of headspace that her parents was in for even allowing their child to go through that. A real parent would have shut that down, like, no, nothing's wrong with your body. Leave it alone. You're not getting that surgery unless, if you do, you're not getting that surgery unless you've grown and out of my house. I commend her, even still at 22 at her young age, being able to recognize what she did was wrong, and also trying to talk to other girls. And hopefully all these girls that sit on TikTok all day, probably obsessing about other celebrities and Instagram models and what type of surgeries they had. Maybe they can come across this video and decide it's not the path for them. And we didn't even talk about the surgeon. What type of unethical bastard are you that you perform that procedure on someone under the age of 18 anyway? They say, I'm not apologizing. My butt implant is upside down either way, you asshole. Crazy. But you guys let me know what you think in the comments. Do better, squad. Fall out.